Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about recent pieces of nerd entertainment or a single recent piece of nerd entertainment and dig into what worked about it, what didn't, what we liked, what we didn't, themes, tone, message, and so on, which means we spoil the heck out of it. Tonight's show is the Marvel show on Hulu, M.O.D.O.K, the animated series with Patton Oswalt and many, many other people. And if you have not seen it and you don't want it to be spoiled, I suggest you find something else to watch. If you have seen it, awesome. Hang with us, or if you don't mind spoilers, hang with us. And feel free to throw your own opinions in on the chat, comment on what we say, and so on. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter and a few other places as a tech journalist. Joining me tonight is the founder of the massive media empire, except not the dark side empire, because, you know, it's a good empire. Manny, introduce yourself if you would.
Hello, my name is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber. Kneel before me. Thank you for watching the show.
You know, that's a couple of weeks when we'll be doing Loki. So,
yeah. Oh, yes, yeah.
More
Sorry.
appropriate. Welcome a bunch of people already in the chat. Chris Bella Bazaar, welcome to the show. Waifu Pennywise, welcome back. Harry Brady, welcome back. I'll answer your first question right out of the gate. As far as I know, I do not know that there has been a second season of M.O.D.O.K approved. Harry asks, when is there a second season of M.O.D.O.K? If we hear about that, we'll have it on our Nerd Week live show. But not that I've heard that there's a second season already given the green light. So what is M.O.D.O.K? M.O.D.O.K is a supervillain from Marvel Comics, primarily a Captain America villain, although anybody associated with the Avengers has, you know, had their moment in the sun with M.O.D.O.K because M.O.D.O.K dates all the way back to the mid-late 60s. It is an acronym, and it stands for Mental Organism Designed Only for Killing, or Mobile or Mechanical. The M has shifted a little bit, depending on who's writing it. M.O.D.O.K, let me give you a good picture of just M.O.D.O.K here with his portal. M.O.D.O.K, as you see, is essentially a giant head with normal-sized human limbs, maybe slightly smaller human limbs, in a floating anti-gravity chair, because that's the only way he can get around. M.O.D.O.K was originally a scientist working for Advanced Idea Mechanics, AIM, named George Tarleton, and basically volunteered to have all these experiments done on him, and have his, ideally his intelligence elevated to this insanely super genius level. The side effects are he has this giant head, and was more than willing to have, you know, the suit built around him and, you know, all AIM super weapons and prosthetics and things put into it. So, so he's pretty, you know, comfortable with this idea. Mental organism designed only for killing comes from the mind beams that he projects out of the jewel on his forehead, which do kind of whatever he wants them to. There's sort of disintegration rays or force beams like Cyclops, or whatever the writer of the comic needs it to be at the time. As you can see from his design, it lends itself to parody pretty easily right out of the gate. He kind of looks stupid, and he's about as frightening as Arnim Zola, who in the comic books, as opposed to in the MCU, where he's an AI trapped in an old-fashioned giant supercomputer, he's Arnim Zola's head inside a mechanical body, but the head's inside the chest, or you see it on a display screen in the chest. Anyway, also pretty stupid design. So back then in the 60s, you know.
Yeah, it works well with Jack Kirby's style. Like, something about his art style makes weird characters like that work, especially during the time period. But now,
not so much.
Yeah.
So This is a series that was proposed and written, well, co-written, but written by Patton Oswalt, along with Jordan Blum of Blumhouse. So the massive, enormous horror franchise studio. Um, and let's see, and a bunch of other people's for individual episodes. Some of them names I've heard of, Brett Cawley and so on. But it's primarily Jordan Blum and Patton Oswalt wrote this series. 10 episodes long. It's on Hulu. And what it does is it takes the idea that M.O.D.O.K isn't just this super genius leader of AIM out to conquer the world. He is also a family man, was a wife. That's his wife, Jody, who is a up-and-coming, growing YouTube celebrity or social media celebrity talking about, cooking and improving your life. And has two kids, Lou and Melissa. Obviously, Lewis takes more after mom. Melissa takes more after dad, as you can see from the picture there. And he basically is such a lousy business manager that he runs his company essentially bankrupt. And the head CEO, they never actually give him a real title, I don't think, Austin, comes in and offers to invest in AIM through his company Grumble, which is essentially Google. Even though they list Google as an actual company, Austin Vandersleet. And ultimately winds up sneaking in the fact that they bought a controlling stake in AIM, and now M.O.D.O.K has to work for a boss. And so essentially it's a domestic comedy with lots of murder.
And Marvel references.
And lots of Marvel references. And that's it. That's the show. It is, as you can see by the animation, if you're familiar with the sort of style, it's done by what is now called Stupid Buddy Studios, which was Stupid Monkey. Seth Green and his compatriots that did Robot Chicken. But with obviously way more money for better production value.
Yeah.
And so that's it. So we start once we do the introduction about what the show is about and where it comes from. It's time to move into what we liked, what worked for us, what they shot for and achieved. Manny, what do you say about all those things?
Probably my favorite thing about the show is that the quality. If you look at Robot Chicken and then look at this stuff now, the quality is much better. Um, uh, the music they use, sound effects, voice acting. I think everyone did a stellar job. Patton Oswalt, he's really funny, and I'm really glad he's getting a chance to shine and show off his skills. Um, but that's really what stands out to me is like the best thing about it. It's just the animation.
Yeah, so the image that I got up there for you right now is indicative of that. This is obviously a stop motion figurine doll, whatever you want to call it, of M.O.D.O.K. And then the portal is also mostly stop motion with some CG for extra wiggly effects. And it's amazing what they can do with that kind of technology. Turning stop motion essentially into something as smooth as computer animated graphics. It's a Waifu Pennywise. I thought they stopped doing stop motion. No, stop motion is still pretty popular depending on the movie maker and so on.
I know it's more expensive than some of the other animation styles,
but Paul Thomas Anderson used it in both The Fabulous Mr. Fox and Island of Dogs. So he's very, very big on it. I'm trying to think of who else recently has done a fair amount of stop motion. Well, all of the Wallace and Gromit series and ones like it are all stop motion.
I forgot the name of the company that did Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah. So Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas and Neil Gaiman's Coraline are done with stop motion.
Yeah.
Good point. Excellent. So yeah, it's definitely not dead. It's definitely still out there, but it is a stylistic choice more than you know, just one of, a couple of options if you've got the budget. Somebody really needs to want to have it done in stop motion for them to do it these days. Um, so I agree with Manny. I think I think the animation is really surprisingly clean, sharp, smooth. Even in like extreme close-ups where you can actually see like the black balls on people's eyeballs that are their pupils, and I think fade over here, Lou's stand out the most when they're doing a fairly tight close-up on the face of the character, and you can actually see the shape of the balls that are stuck on the white part of the eyeballs as they move around. It still works. And so I think that's really good. Again, I agree with the voice cast. Patton Oswalt is fantastic. My favorite character and possibly favorite voice acting is the Super Adaptoid. First off, the fact that they just casually have the Super Adaptoid as kind of M.O.D.O.K's household Roomba, essentially. Generic, any device he wants it to be, toaster, TV, whatever, is wonderful and hilarious. But John Daly, a very experienced voice actor, is just hilarious. A wife who asks, "Is the mouth animated with the characters?" Yeah. So what they do is they animate multiple different parts of the head, or they create multiple different heads and swap them out as they're doing the animation, and also including have the bodies moving around. There's very little just static. Look at the figurine with the mouth moving. It's all very fluid and dynamic animation. But yes, they do animate the mouths and they animate the eyes and so on. And those are either replaceable parts that they put in, or in the case of something like this Super Adaptoid, where his face has to be smooth, those are different heads. And they just swap the head with a different expression. But I think he's hilarious. The other voice cast, John Hamm as Iron Man. Ben Schwartz as Lou, his son, is not as... Ben Schwartz can be very annoying for me, and he's not at all. Lou is kind of that super weird, super happy kid that you really just want to protect. And Schwartz nails it. All of the cast. I'm trying to think of any other particular standouts. Bill Hader as Angar the Screamer, who actually sings. It's Hadar's voice when he's singing. Nathan Fillion as Simon Williams as Wonder Man. Just a couple of episodes, but it's fantastic. And then they have some people that are just dropped in there. Whoopi Goldberg as Pound Cake. Brian Posehn as General Dagger. Chris Parnell as Tenpin. Just wonderful people. John DiMaggio as just a generic AIM agent. Not Gary. Gary is actually who's a very fairly important recurring AIM agent. Is played by Sam Richardson, also a pretty well-known voice actor. So the voice acting is really good. Let's see what else was particularly stand out about it. That's pretty much it. I guess that's all I got as far as outside. The music is good. It doesn't do anything, but the sound effects or the sound work, including sound effects, is very good, which has always been a staple of Robot Chicken or Stupid Buddy Studios. Got to remember that name.
Yeah.
So that said, I hate to say this, folks, but I think this is going to be the longer segment. Manny, what didn't you like about this? What didn't work? What did they try for and miss?
I didn't like the humor, and I'm not trying to say that the humor is bad. I think the issue is that if you like Robot Chicken, if you love that humor, then it's the same type of style where a lot of explosions and jokes and reciprocating humor, and everyone's making fun of each other. There are no good guys in the show. Everyone's terrible. Everyone's a terrible person in the show. Um, and I think that's the problem. I think that style. I mean, when I first watched Robot Chicken, I really liked it, but I've noticed I don't watch it anymore. I just my humor has changed a lot since then, and because this show has that style, I've noticed that I just not laughing as much as I want. It's okay. I think if anyone that likes Robot Chicken and still likes that type of humor, I think they will like the show. It also could be also that the genius of Robot Chicken is that it's very short. All their episodes are really really short, so the joke just they go straight for the punchline. Well,
Exactly. Yep.
well,
It's get a nerdy reference, funny joke out as fast as you can.
yeah. And this one, there was a lot of jokes being thrown in, but it was to me it was a lot more misses than hits. It was like, okay, all right, I get it. Um, the overall storyline, I disliked it. I actually enjoyed. Okay, spoiler alert. Last episode when the family gets destroyed and he finally gets the future that he wants. I was actually, yeah, this is great. I hope this is where it ends because I found the family. No, I did not. I had trouble sympathizing with them. You know, again, they're mostly horrible people, and then they uh, try humanizing them a little bit by like, hey, like the father-daughter relationships or father-son, or he should be a better husband. Modok should be a better husband to his wife, and but it just doesn't work for me. Um,
Yep.
so it's and I was disappointed that in the last episode he's like, no, I want the back, and I was like, no, let's. I think the show would have worked better if they would have used maybe just like a bunch of like C-list stars. Just get a bunch of like. I mean, Mo has a history of really funny, um, uh, less known villains in their roster, and I'd love to see maybe giving them a chance to shine more.
Yeah.
Maybe interaction. I think the family element's really hurting the show. That's that's
Yeah.
how I feel.
Yeah. I agree 100%. So this is the biggest disappointment Marvel's done ever. And it hurts me to say that because I love the character M.O.D.O.K from the comics. I absolutely adore Patton Oswalt. I think he's one of the funniest comic actors and comedians working, in the last 20 years. Um, and I forced myself to go through the first 3 episodes, took a break, and then watched episode 4 and started fast forwarding through episodes 5, 6, and 7. I'd skip through and it's like, oh, okay, skip back to that. That's funny. Oh, that's where Nathan Fillion comes in as Wonder Man. Got to watch all of that. Okay, that's good. It's Nathan Fillion. I like it. When he does meet his team of what's essentially C-list villains in the bar with no name, I watched all of that. So, and that's Whoopi Goldberg as Pound Cake, and Bill Hader as Angar the Screamer, the one with the looks like a rock star. Chris Parnell as Tenpin, the one that looks like a Tenpin, and so on. I thought the characterizations that they did with these characters were really funny, and it was like the only continuously funny thing in the entire series. It's a comedy series, and if it's not funny, it obviously is a failure.
Hmm.
Now, why isn't it funny? For me personally, let's get this right out of the gate. I don't like cringe humor. And that's what
Hmm.
this is. This is cringe humor. You're supposed to watch these people, horrible things happen to them or them do horrible things and go, I hate it. I hate cringe humor. I could never, ever watch even a single episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm because that's all that is cringe humor. I mean, like, not my style at all. On top of that, as a divorced dad, The Simpsons did the divorced dad thing with Milhouse's dad decades ago and better. Why rehash that plot line if you're not going to bring something fresh to it? It was awful. The wife of pennies, are some of the rejected villains part of the original comics of the Avengers? I think all of them are at one point or have been Avengers villains. I'd have to go back and look at where each one of them like got their start. I think Melter, which was the one in the middle with
Iron
the
Man. That was
Iron
Iron
Man,
Man.
because
Yeah.
melting metal and so on. Angar the Screamer was an X-Men villain, I think, but I have to look that up.
Yeah. Whirlwind was.
Oh, that's right.
I
Whirlwind
don't.
is in here a bit.
Yeah, I know he joined the Masters of Evil, but I don't remember where he first appeared. He's a mutant too. That's interesting. Um,
So he
but yeah,
probably was X-Men.
yeah,
If he's a mutant, that's probably where he started. Yeah, because I remember there being races. When Quicksilver decided to, you know, become on the good side. Obviously, you put a speedster up against a speedster. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, so I hate cringe humor. I hate the fact that they just retreaded and badly the whole, divorced dad goes to live in a rat infested trash apartment. Isn't look at M.O.D.O.K's life, isn't it horrible?
Mm,
But most importantly, and Manny got to this, is the idea that everybody in this is horrible, and that works if you let them be horrible and don't make a judgment call, or don't try to give us a sense that you're trying to redeem them while still allowing them to be horrible. Breaking Bad works because they don't ever excuse or justify what Walter White is doing. He's a bad person. Now, some of the stuff that happens around him is funny. A lot of it's very frightening. And the stories are written in such a way that that's allowed to happen.
mm,
Walter doesn't, even at the end of the series where he kind of tries to redeem himself, doesn't really have a redemption arc. It plays out more like, if I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory, I might as well do it in a way that, I don't know, helps somebody that used to help me, as opposed to a redemption arc. The only letting really bad people be bad and be funny that works, as far as I've ever seen, is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
mm,
Because again, they don't apologize for these people being bad. They don't try to, have them have redemption arcs. They're bad. Bad things happen to them, or they more often than not make bad things happen to themselves because they're bad and stupid, which many of the characters in M.O.D.O.K are. But M.O.D.O.K tries to pin onto that a sort of a sensitivity and a redemption aspect to it that makes it fail.
yeah.
Completely. If you have people this horrible, you either need to give them an amazing redemption arc or just get rid of it completely. I was, again, full fat spoiler chat, so in his team of team up people, Melter, who is probably one of the oldest of the whole team, the one in the middle, um, he's got a bad ulcer, and he's older, so he's drinking milk of magnesia and so on. And ultimately, at the end of one particular episode, where they all screw up, they're going to go attack Avengers headquarters to get Captain America's shield, and they all, after a night of partying and drinking, fall asleep on the subway and wind up out in Coney Island. So they miss their stop completely. And they just get out, and as the sun's coming up, they sit out on the beach, and it's a beautifully done animation. And when they all decide they're just going to go back and have another couple of pops at the bar, which bar apparently is open 24 hours, and they serve donuts at 7 along with their booze, that was pretty amusing. They all go to leave, and Melter's just still sitting there, and M.O.D.O.K comes back, and Melter has died. And they play this as a really touching moment, and it kind of is. Except then in the next episode, M.O.D.O.K completely ruins any value that had by being the most horrible person at a funeral you've ever encountered. And it's just, if you have characters that you're trying to show have a redemption arc, and then they don't learn anything from that redemption until the very, very end. And I will give them this. I actually kind of enjoyed the last 3 episodes. One, because they gave up all of the cringe humor and made it more of an action show, with appropriate humor that made fun of Marvel when it needed to be made fun of. Alan Tudyk as Arcade was, one, hilarious because he's Alan Tudyk, and two, they did a really good job of making fun of Arcade's insanely stupid and ridiculous, murder world things, arcades essentially. Um, but that it was all sort of funny action stuff with his whole family, um, and they didn't rely on that cringe humor, which the entire show was up to that point. So at that point, it's like, okay, so they're getting funny Marvel references. They're using the stupid characters appropriately stupidly. There's a lot more action. They're wrapping up a couple of plot line elements that were put there in the in the first couple of episodes, and then hit on at various points throughout other episodes. And it has that ending that Manny says is that basically M.O.D.O.K accepts that the only way he's going to get his perfect world, the M.O.D.O.K world, that he wants, is to let his family die.
That's almost like a symbol, like something trying to tell us something.
Exactly. Let this series die, folks. And he does, and then again, they, like Manny says, they try to, he tortures essentially his younger self, trying to figure out a way to get everything he wants, his family still alive and his future world. And it's a not a recommendable show, folks. I'm sorry. It's just A for effort, A for fantastic voice actors, and much lower grades for the writing, for the humor. Oh, and again, I don't. Patton Oswalt, go watch his 9-minute long, completely off the cuff speculation about what it might mean when Disney owns both Star Wars and Marvel, when the Marvel deal finally closed, from the show Parks and Rec, and you can find it on YouTube. Just
that's brilliant.
Patton Oswalt improvisation, and it's 9 minutes of they just said, talk about this, and they, because he's playing a guy that is getting up and testifying before the town council or the Parks Commission, about something, and then just goes off on a complete tangent. And they didn't want to write it for him. They just said, okay, let's talk about something. They had no idea he was going to go on for 9 minutes. And it's 9 minutes of some of the best, nerdiest, funniest stuff you'll ever see in your life. So the fact that he didn't write jokes even remotely that good for this, I don't get it. And I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed in this show.
I am hopeful that the second season, I'm hoping that they'll look at it and maybe tweak it up some more. I feel like there's potential. There's potential for something really good here, but I maybe they're just throwing all the darts on the wall and trying to see what sticks.
Yeah, although it's consistent in tone, and we'll get to tone and theme. It's consistent in tone enough that I don't think they were throwing stuff at the wall. I think they decided this is the path we're going down. Now, maybe for individual jokes, they were, okay, well, let's see if we can do this or we can do that. But even the, gore humor, Rick and Morty does it better. It's already there. It's out, there's something out there already. It's Rick and Morty. It does it so much better. And I hate, to do the comparison, but you've got something out there that's that good, and you're doing that kind of humor as part of your set of jokes. You got to get to that level, folks. Otherwise, it ain't going to work. And it didn't. So that's the things I don't like. I don't like the type of humor. I don't like the writing of the humor. I don't like the direction they took the story. I don't like the fact that some of the characters are wasted. You know, Monica, the scientist supreme from actual comic book, lore, is a great character and well acted, well, voice acted, and has some of the most. It's still kind of cringe humor, but like she loves torturing manatees. And I was just like, every time that came up, it's like, oh my god, that's so horrible. That's funny. But it wasn't. It was sort of just presented as this is an aspect of her character, not as, let's make this like the cringiest thing in the world, and everybody can laugh while they're going, ugh, which is what so much of the rest of the humor is in this. So anyway, yeah, I was not a fan, and frankly, had to force myself to watch as much of it as I did, which is really too bad. And I'm not the only one. I mean, as I was pulling together images for this from today, the articles that some of these images are in are things like M.O.D.O.K has lots of jokes and few laughs, and so it's like yeah, they're not wrong. So hey, even the MCU can have a miss.
Yeah. True, it happened once with Iron Man 3.
You know what? Iron Man 3 is friggin' Hamlet compared to this. Iron Man 3 missed on a lot of ways, but had some amazing pieces and parts to it. Just the fact that they were willing to allow Tony to be a victim of PTSD, and how he handled it. Killian was kind of a worthless villain and portrayed not terribly well by an actor I really like, Guy Pearce. But come on, Sir Ben Kingsley, Trevor, just perfect. Anyway, but yeah, compared to Iron Man 3, this is. I was going to say Hot Tub Time Machine. This is, this is The Room. So there is a tone of this. I don't know if there's a message, although I guess they try to put one out there. But Manny, what did you get out of this?
Don't put work before your family. Family's more important than your job or your dreams, I guess. Weirdly, I don't know. I don't know if that's even a good message in itself, but that's all. That's really out. Maybe get a business degree. Don't sell your company, and without knowing the consequences of it. I'm not sure. That was it. I think.
I do have to say, having covered tech startups for decades, that's not an uncommon story. That you've got a tech genius who has products, starts a company, and is one of the worst business people you've ever run across. And, investors will come in and they invest in the product, not the person, and wind up, in the best of times when the person realizes that they're not that good at it, they wind up as the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer. And in the worst of times, they wind up out of the company. And it happens all the time. So that part was, I was watching that, it's like, yeah, okay, it happens. Sometimes, they wind up, being fantastically integrated. Rich Miner, Google bought Android. Android became like everything. And Rich Miner became, the head of Google's investment arm. So, sometimes it works out really well. Sometimes it don't. I think tonally, as we were talking about whether or not they were just sort of throwing stuff at the wall, I don't think so, because tonally, this is pretty consistently, we're going to make a show with cringe humor. And it holds that tone for the most part, like every episode, there's one thing. The biggest laughs I had were when there were just sort of little side Marvel jokes. I'm like, I got that. I see that.
Hmm.
And then the rest of it was like, oh, God, not again. Um, so tonally, yeah, tonally, I think it's pretty consistent. If you like cringe humor, if you're a fan of that kind of humor, um, go for
Hmm.
it. I'm not, and didn't find it even remotely funny for the most part.
Hmm.
And yeah, the message is a very muddled. Um, Family is more important than anything else. Um, because ultimately he sacrifices his family at the end, and then ultimately tries to fix that, but there doesn't seem to be any way for that to happen, and that's obviously, if there is a second season, that's what they're going to continue trying to do. I think, although having a second season established in a future where M.O.D.O.K is the ruler of the world, not really sure where they can go with the humor at that point, and certainly not the family humor.
Yeah.
Um,
I would be really upset if the second season starts out with, yeah, he somehow fixes it so that he goes back in time, and or this wipes out the future and they're back to square one with everything. I'd be really disappointed, honestly. But like, okay, this is gonna be like this the entire second season
yeah,
and not worth watching.
and they did play around a little bit with the idea that there are branching timelines. Um, so they could be very easily do that. Whether they specifically tie it into the stuff that's happening on Loki, or was referenced in Endgame or anything else like that, they don't really need to. But it's there in one of the later episodes. There is time travel in this, and that does, it's very important to the story ultimately. Um, but yeah, I would agree if that's where they go with season two. And so far, I haven't seen anything that would tell me that they're good enough to write a funny way of making that work and not making me just go, no, no, not buying it.
Yeah.
Um,
Can we go to a future where we're reviewing and spoiling Black Widow? I kind of want to go there now.
well, we still have to get through Tomorrow War.
Oh yes,
And I'm not
yes.
saying that I haven't looked at any of the reviews, so I don't know whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And I haven't seen it yet, although I do have a reviewers screening available to me, so I should probably watch that this weekend.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps it up, folks. I wish we could go on at length like we did last Full Fat Spoiler Chat, where Greg and I were just you know gushing over Luca. You want to watch something good piece of entertainment that's animated? Go watch Luca.
Hmm.
Um, it's not Pixar's best, but it really does have some very very important messages, and it is completely charmingly funny all the way through. Um, so yeah, go watch that. Don't watch M.O.D.O.K.
Hmm.
And again, I hate to say this because I love so many people involved in it, and I love the character. And when we were putting up news of all of the casting, and over the course of the last year or so, and we got to Bill Hader has been cast as Angar the Screamer, and I'm like, oh my god, one, Bill Hader, and two, they're gonna have Angar the Screamer, really? Like one of the Z-list villains in Marvel Comics. I'm like, yes. I mean, he's good. Bill Hader can't do bad,
Hmm.
but he's
Can I
still
share?
wasted.
Can I share this a random thing?
Mm.
The one thing good about the show that reminded me of the Scourge storyline from I think the late '80s, early '90s, because the Melter, he was a victim of the Scourge. A Bar of No Name had a very famous scene where I think he was the bartender all this whole time and just killed every supervillain in the bar. For those of you that don't know, there was this weird storyline going on in different comics at the time, kind of in a sense revolutionary at the time, where there was this vigilante called the Scourge that was hunting down supervillains, and that was like a really cool mystery at the time. And of course, it ended kind of badly, in my opinion. But that's what I was like. So someone's been reading the old stuff.
Yeah, and that's true. Otherwise, I can't remember the last time 10-pin got used. So somebody's clearly been reading the old stuff. Melter,
Yeah.
for that matter. Um, so, and even that's a disappointment because they could have mined that for so much more nerdy humor. And I don't think they were going by even having them in here. It's clear that they weren't trying to make this attainable by people who aren't familiar with Marvel Comics. I mean, it's M.O.D.O.K, for God's sakes. So if you've already accepted that you're making this primarily for Marvel fans, dig into that. And they didn't. You know, they wound up with, Roseanne, essentially. Roseanne with supervillains. So, on that note, folks, I wish I could tell you that it was better.
We suffered for you.
Boy, did we suffer. But anyway, so that wraps up this sad look at M.O.D.O.K. Coming up, we have on Monday is our No Nerd Caliber show, and this time the team will be looking at our top 3 favorite time travel stories from film, TV, books, comics, whatever. And the reason we're doing that is because on next Thursday, our next Full Fat Spoiler Chat show is going to be The Tomorrow War, the Chris Pratt science fiction time travel warfare movie. And then in between that, of course, on Tuesday, we have Nerd Week Live, already dropping a few stories that have hit that we'll be talking about, and I'm sure there'll be a ton more stuff. We always fill that one up. Pardon me. So, that said, folks, thank you very much for joining us in the chat. Great questions by those people that were throwing out the questions. We love to see it. I just realized that I was paying attention to YouTube entirely and have no idea whether anybody had asked us to... No, okay, we're good there. And, and, of course, we always have to throw out our... Like what we do here? Like what we do over at cons? Now that, cons are coming back, thank God, knock wood. Then help us out. Go to patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Check it out. We've got 2 tiers, a whopping 2 tiers, folks, and both of them are pretty low dollar. The idea is essentially we're just looking for people to help us generate more content for you to all enjoy here on YouTube, Twitch, on Facebook, and of course on the website nerdcaliber.com. So patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Manny, if you would give us a goodbye.
Take care, everyone. Be safe. Get your shots, and hope you enjoy something better.
Yes.
Show-wise, not us, but show-wise.
Yes, I'm sure you can enjoy something better, as well. But and again, for me, Rodney Brown, thank you very much for joining us. We will see you in one of our upcoming shows. And in a couple of months, again, knock wood, although we're pretty solid about this, we'll see you at cons.
Yep.
Good night, bye-bye, and again, the temperatures dropped way down here in the Northeast. Please, everybody out there on the West Coast, do everything you can to stay safe. That heat wave hasn't broken out there, so stay hydrated, stay cool, go to emergency shelters if you have to. On that note, we'll see you later.